Hollywood's golden age produced masterpieces that changed cinema forever. Did you know one film's production led to an entire Los Angeles neighborhood being built? Another triggered actual Soviet tanks rolling through the set. These aren't just old classics. They're revolutionary visions that directors today still steal from shamelessly. Number 15, The Bridge on the River Kwai, 1957. This isn't just another war movie. It's what happens when obsession meets insanity in the steaming jungles of Burma. British POWs are forced to build a railway bridge for their Japanese captors, but their commanding officer, played by Alec Guinness, becomes so fixated on building it perfectly that he loses sight of whose side he's on. The filming was absolute madness. Director David Lean dragged his crew into the Ceylon wilderness for months, battling tropical diseases, flash floods, and venomous snakes. The massive wooden bridge they constructed wasn't just a prop, it was a fully functional engineering marvel that cost over $250,000 just to build, only to be spectacularly destroyed in the film's legendary finale. When Guinness first read the script, he threw it across the room, calling it rubbish. He nearly walked off the set multiple times, clashing violently with Lean about his character's motivations. Their arguments became so heated that producers feared the entire production would collapse. Critics initially dismissed it as too long and morally ambiguous. The film dared to show British officers collaborating with the enemy, which outraged military veterans. But audiences couldn't get enough. It exploded at the box office, raking in over $30 million against a $3 million budget, and sweeping the Oscars with 7 wins, including Best Picture. Kubrick later called it the only epic film I truly admire, while Spielberg cited the bridge explosion sequence as the moment I knew I wanted to make movies. The American Film Institute ranked it as the 13th greatest American film ever made, not bad for a movie about building a bridge. Number 14, On the Waterfront, 1954. Marlon Brando doesn't just act in this film, he reinvents what acting even means. Playing Terry Malloy, a washed-up boxer turned longshoreman who witnesses a murder by corrupt union bosses, Brando delivered perhaps the most influential performance in cinema history. The famous "I could have been a contender" scene wasn't even supposed to happen that way. Director Elia Kazan was running behind schedule and told Brando to improvise. What came out was raw, wounded masculinity that changed acting forever. That scene alone launched thousands of acting careers from guys who saw it and thought, I want to do that. Behind the scenes, the film was insanely controversial. Kazan had recently named names to the House Un-American Activities Committee, and many viewed the film as his justification for informing. Screenwriter Bud Schulberg interviewed real waterfront workers and based characters on actual gangsters, leading to death threats during production. The film crew faced constant intimidation from real mob-connected union members. They had to film with hidden cameras in some locations, with guards protecting the equipment. Brando wore a bulletproof vest to certain shoots after receiving threats. Critics went wild. The New York Times called it the most brutal and moving account of waterfront life ever to be recorded on film. It dominated the Academy Awards with 8 wins, including Best Picture, Director, and Actor. Even today, directors like Scorsese and Coppola cite it as a primary influence on their work. The film's impact went beyond cinema. It actually helped spark real waterfront reforms and investigations into union corruption. That's not just filmmaking, that's changing the world. Number 13, Ben-Hur, 1959. This isn't just an epic, it's the epic that nearly bankrupted MGM before saving it. Charlton Heston leads the charge as Judah Ben-Hur, a Jewish prince betrayed by his Roman friend and forced into slavery, only to rise again seeking revenge and redemption. The famous chariot race sequence? Absolutely insane production value. It cost $4 million alone. That's the entire budget of most films back then. Director William Wyler built a track spanning 18 acres, used 15,000 extras, and filmed for 5 weeks straight to capture 9 minutes of screen time. The sequence required 82 horses trained for months, and Heston spent 10 weeks learning to drive a chariot. When a stuntman was nearly killed after being thrown from his vehicle, Wyler kept the camera rolling, incorporating the near-death moment into the final cut. MGM bet everything on this film, $15 million, the most expensive movie ever made at that time. Studio executives were sweating bullets when it ran over budget and schedule. If it flopped, MGM would have gone under. Instead, it earned $90 million worldwide, rescuing the studio from financial ruin. Critics called it a miracle of cinema. It won an unprecedented 11 Academy Awards, a record unmatched for 38 years. Roger Ebert later wrote, "There's something epic about the very shape and feel of this movie that few films even attempt." Ben-Hur's massive success sparked a decade of historical epics that dominated Hollywood. It proved audiences would sit through nearly 4 hours of movie if it delivered spectacular enough action and emotion. Ridley Scott has repeatedly named it as the primary influence for Gladiator, proving its impact continues generations later. Number 12. The Searchers, 1956. This isn't your daddy's Western. John Wayne doesn't play a hero. He plays Ethan Edwards, a deeply racist Civil War veteran obsessed with finding his niece who's been kidnapped by Comanche warriors. The twist? He might be planning to kill her because she's been contaminated by living with Native Americans. Director John Ford shot the film in Monument Valley, pushing his crew to the absolute limit. Temperatures swung from below freezing to over 100 degrees in a single day. Wayne performed his own stunts despite suffering from a torn shoulder muscle throughout filming. The production nearly got shut down when a flash flood almost wiped out the entire set and crew. The film bombed at the box office. Audiences in 1956 weren't ready for a Western that questioned American myths about conquest and heroism. Critics were equally confused, with many dismissing it as just another cowboy movie. The darkness at its core, the suggestion that America was built on racist violence, was too uncomfortable for 1950s viewers. Today, Martin Scorsese calls it the greatest American film that has ever been made. Paul Schrader declared it the most important movie in American history. Its influence is everywhere, from Star Wars. George Lucas directly borrowed its famous doorway shots to Taxi Driver. Travis Bickle is modeled after Ethan Edwards. Ford and Wayne never explained the film's ambiguous ending, leaving audiences to debate for decades. Did Ethan change? Was he planning to kill his niece all along? This refusal to provide easy answers revolutionized American cinema, paving the way for the morally complex films of the 1970s. Number 11. Lawrence of Arabia, 1962. This desert epic doesn't just show the vastness of the Arabian desert, it makes you feel the scorching heat and taste the sand in your teeth. Peter O'Toole, in his breakthrough role, plays T.E. Lawrence, the enigmatic British officer who united Arab tribes against the Ottoman Empire during World War I. Director David Lean went absolutely mad with authenticity. He dragged hundreds of cast and crew into the Jordanian and Moroccan deserts for 2 years of filming. No air conditioning, no special effects, just brutal conditions that matched the story they were telling. O'Toole nearly died during production. He fell off a camel, got dysentery, and suffered severe sunburn that hospitalized him multiple times. The famous Mirage sequence, that's real heat distortion captured on 70mm film after the crew waited days for perfect conditions. The studio panicked when Lean delivered a cut nearly 4 hours long. Columbia Pictures president Sam Spiegel demanded cuts, leading to screaming matches with Lean. The director refused to budge, declaring, "I haven't spent 2 years in the desert to make a shorter film than Gone with the Wind." Critics were stunned. The New York Times called it breathtaking, while Roger Ebert later named it the film that made him want to become a critic. It dominated the Academy Awards, winning 7 Oscars, including Best Picture and Director. Financially, it was an enormous risk that paid off spectacularly, earning over $70 million against its $15 million budget. The film's influence is immeasurable. Steven Spielberg watches it yearly before starting any new project. Ridley Scott called its desert photography the benchmark all films are measured against. Even Denis Villeneuve cited it as the primary visual reference for Dune. Not bad for a movie that Columbia executives initially dismissed as a movie about an obscure British soldier no one cares about. Number 10. Psycho, 1960. Hitchcock didn't just make a horror film, he completely rewrote the rules of cinema. When Janet Leigh's character is murdered in the shower, barely 45 minutes in, audiences in 1960 absolutely lost their minds. No one had ever killed the main character halfway through a movie before. The filming of the infamous shower scene took 7 days to shoot just 45 seconds of footage. Hitchcock used 70 camera setups and 78 edits. The blood was actually chocolate syrup because it looked better in black and white. Lee was so traumatized by the scene that she reportedly avoided showers for the rest of her life, taking only baths. Paramount Studios thought Hitchcock had gone completely insane. They refused to finance the film, forcing him to mortgage his own house and shoot with his cheaper TV crew instead of his usual film team. The studio executives were so horrified by the final cut that they limited it to just a few theaters. Critics initially panned it. The New Yorker called it a shabby little horror film, while Time magazine dismissed it as plainly a gimmick movie. Audiences disagreed spectacularly. Lines wrapped around blocks, with people waiting hours to see the film Paramount had tried to bury. The financial gamble paid off beyond anyone's wildest expectations. Made for just $800,000, Psycho grossed over $50 million, making it one of the most profitable black and white films ever made. Its influence has been incalculable. Without Psycho, there would be no slasher genre, no The Exorcist, no Silence of the Lambs. Hitchcock changed moviegoing itself. He insisted theaters not allow anyone to enter after the film began, creating the concept of showtimes we take for granted today. As Martin Scorsese put it, there was film before Psycho and film after Psycho. It divided cinema history. Number 9, The Apartment, 1960. This isn't just a romantic comedy, it's a razor-sharp satire about corporate America that somehow manages to be both hilarious and heartbreaking. Jack Lemmon plays Cece Baxter, a lonely office worker who loans his apartment to company executives for their extramarital affairs, hoping it will help him climb the corporate ladder. Director Billy Wilder shot the film in brutal honesty, refusing to sugarcoat its depiction of workplace exploitation and suicide attempts. The studio was terrified, convinced audiences would reject such dark themes in a comedy. Wilder didn't care. He based the story on a real Hollywood producer who had used a similar apartment lending scheme. The film's office scenes required an engineering marvel. Wilder built one of the largest indoor sets ever constructed at that time, with over 150 desks stretching toward infinity. The famous shot was achieved with a trick of perspective and carefully placed extras to create the illusion of thousands of identical workers. Critics were divided. Some called it the most cynical film ever to win Best Picture, while others praised its unflinching look at the moral compromises of modern life. Audiences, however, connected with its honesty, making it a surprise box office hit with over $25 million against a $3 million budget. The Academy rewarded Wilder's risk-taking with 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, Director, and Screenplay. Its influence extends beyond cinema, Mad Men creator. Matthew Weiner cited it as the primary inspiration for his show's exploration of corporate culture and infidelity. Cameron Crowe called it the perfect screenplay and taught himself to write by typing out Wilder's script word for word. The film's final line, "Shut up and deal," has become one of cinema's most quotable moments, encapsulating both romantic commitment and pragmatic acceptance of life's complications. Number 8, Vertigo, 1958. This isn't just a thriller, it's Hitchcock's most personal and disturbing vision. James Stewart plays Scotty Ferguson, a detective with a fear of heights who becomes obsessed with a woman he's hired to follow, then tries to transform another woman into her image after her apparent suicide. The film's famous vertigo effect, simultaneously zooming in while tracking backward, was invented specifically for this movie. It was so difficult to achieve that it nearly bankrupted the production. Hitchcock became obsessed with every detail, forcing Kim Novak to re-dye her hair multiple times until he achieved exactly the right shade of blonde. The studio hated it. Paramount executives called it too weird and too perverse for audiences. Stewart, America's beloved everyman, was playing an unhealthily obsessed voyeur, and test audiences were deeply uncomfortable. The film was a commercial failure upon release, barely making back its $2.5 million budget. Critics were equally harsh. The New Yorker called it far-fetched nonsense, while Time magazine dismissed it as just another Hitchcock thriller. The director was so devastated by the response that he bought back the rights to the film and withdrew it from circulation for decades. The ultimate vindication came in 2012 when Sight and Sound's International Critics Poll named Vertigo the greatest film ever made, dethroning Citizen Kane after 50 years. Martin Scorsese called it the essential American film about identity and self-creation. Its influence is everywhere, from David Lynch's entire career to the psychological depths of Christopher Nolan's films. The most unsettling fact? Hitchcock's obsessive relationship with his leading ladies mirrored Scotty's fixation. He controlled Novak's appearance, movement, and performance in ways that eerily paralleled the film's themes of manipulation and identity. Number 7. 2001. A Space Odyssey, 1968. This isn't a movie. It's a religious experience that happens to be projected on a screen. Stanley Kubrick's vision of humanity's evolution from apes to star children left audiences either entranced or enraged. There's nothing like it before or since. The production was absolute madness. Kubrick spent over 2 years filming, built rotating sets that cost millions, and invented entirely new visual effects techniques just for this film. The famous Dawn of Man sequence with the apes? Those weren't costumes. Kubrick hired mime artists who trained for months to move convincingly in suits specially designed by makeup genius Stuart Freeborn. When MGM executives first saw the finished film, they nearly had heart attacks. There's barely any dialogue for the first 30 minutes, no traditional narrative structure, and an ending that defies explanation. Test audiences walked out in droves. MGM's head of distribution reportedly cried after the premiere, convinced his career was over. Critics were utterly divided. The New York Times called it somewhere between hypnotic and immensely boring, while Roger Ebert declared it a landmark of cinema. The film polarized audiences so dramatically that theaters reported young people watching it multiple times, often under the influence of various substances. The financial gamble eventually paid off, with the film grossing $146 million against a $10.5 million budget. Its cultural impact has been immeasurable. Without 2001, there would be no Star Wars, no Alien, no Interstellar. Even Apple's Steve Jobs cited HAL 9000 as inspiration for his vision of human-computer interaction. Christopher Nolan summed it up best. There are films that are influential, and there are films where the influence is so profound that it's impossible to even measure it. 2001 is in that second category. Number 6. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, 1966. This isn't just a Western. It's the Western that redefined the entire genre. Clint Eastwood's squinting gunslinger searches for buried Confederate gold alongside 2 equally dangerous men during the chaos of the Civil War. Director Sergio Leone created something revolutionary by filming in Spain with Italian crews, American stars, and dubbed dialogue. The production was chaotic. Eastwood nearly died when a stunt involving a bridge explosion went wrong. The famous 3-way standoff in the cemetery? It took 3 days to film just a few minutes of footage, with Leone obsessively positioning each actor's eyes, hands, and guns for maximum tension. Leone battled constantly with the studio. When executives saw his first cut running nearly 3 hours, they demanded massive cuts. American distributors slashed 25 minutes from the international version, butchering Leone's careful pacing. The director was so furious, he considered disowning the film entirely. Critics initially dismissed it as violent exploitation. The New York Times called it the most expensive, pious, and repellent movie in the history of its peculiar genre. European critics, however, recognized Leone's brilliance immediately, praising his operatic visual style and moral ambiguity. The film was a box office phenomenon, earning over $25 million on a budget of just $1.2 million. Its cultural impact has been immense. From its revolutionary use of extreme close-ups to Ennio Morricone's iconic score, which has been sampled and referenced countless times in everything from hip-hop to television commercials. Quentin Tarantino called it the best directed film of all time, while Spielberg cited the cemetery standoff as a masterclass in building tension. Eastwood's entire career was launched by this film, transforming him from a TV actor to a global superstar and eventually one of Hollywood's most respected directors. Number 5. Rear Window, 1954. This isn't just a murder mystery. It's Hitchcock turning the entire audience into voyeurs alongside James Stewart's wheelchair-bound photographer who thinks he's witnessed a murder in his apartment complex. The entire film takes place on one massive set, the most elaborate ever built at Paramount at that time. Hitchcock constructed a full apartment building with 31 fully furnished apartments, working plumbing, and real electric wiring. The set was so enormous, it required the removal of an entire soundstage floor. During the scorching summer shoot, temperatures on set reached over 100 degrees, with actors and crew fainting regularly. Stewart's character is based on real-life war photographer Robert Capa, who was known for getting dangerously close to combat. Hitchcock deliberately cast Stewart against type, America's wholesome everyman transformed into a creepy voyeur who enjoys spying on his neighbors. Critics immediately recognized its brilliance. Time magazine called it just possibly the second most entertaining picture ever made. It was a substantial commercial hit as well, earning $5.3 million on a $1 million budget. The film's influence has been enormous. Brian De Palma's entire career essentially reworks Rear Window's themes and techniques. The Simpsons, The Truman Show, and American Beauty all directly reference it. Even modern surveillance thrillers like The Conversation and Enemy of the State owe their existence to Hitchcock's pioneering exploration of watching and being watched. François Truffaut perhaps put it best. Rear Window is not just a suspense film, it's an essay on cinema itself, on watching, on making stories from what we see, and on the moral implications of doing so. Number 4. Sunset Boulevard, 1950. This isn't just a Hollywood story, it's Hollywood turning the camera on itself to reveal the grotesque horror lurking beneath the glamour. Gloria Swanson plays Norma Desmond, a forgotten silent film star living in delusion while entrapping a struggling screenwriter in her decaying mansion. Director Billy Wilder took enormous risks. The film opens with the narrator's dead body floating in a swimming pool, an unheard-of narrative choice in 1950. Swanson was actually a faded silent film star playing a version of herself, lending the film a disturbing meta-quality. The famous scene where Norma watches her old films? Those are Swanson's actual silent movies being projected. Hollywood was horrified. Louis B. Mayer, head of MGM, reportedly screamed at Wilder after a screening, "You have disgraced the industry that made and fed you. You should be tarred and feathered and run out of Hollywood." Numerous stars, including Mae West and Mary Pickford, turned down the role of Norma, terrified of what it might do to their image. Critics were stunned by its darkness. The Hollywood Reporter called it a tour de force of the macabre that makes the lot of Hollywood a domain of freaks. It was a substantial commercial success despite its grim subject matter, earning $2.5 million on a $1.75 million budget. The film scored 11 Oscar nominations but lost Best Picture to the safer, more uplifting All About Eve. Its cultural impact, however, has been immeasurable. The American Film Institute ranked it as the 12th greatest American film ever made. Its dialogue has become part of our cultural vocabulary. I am big, it's the pictures that got small, and I'm ready for my close-up remain among cinema's most quoted lines. David Lynch's entire career, particularly Mulholland Drive, can be seen as an extension of Sunset Boulevard's Hollywood nightmare. As Roger Ebert noted, no film better captures the dark side of Hollywood. Number 3. Cleopatra, 1963. This isn't just an epic, it's the film that nearly destroyed 20th Century Fox and changed Hollywood economics forever. Elizabeth Taylor stars as the Egyptian queen, navigating relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, while trying to maintain her kingdom's independence. The production was absolutely catastrophic. Originally budgeted at $2 million, costs eventually ballooned to over $44 million, equivalent to about $370 million today. The first director was fired after shooting $7 million worth of unusable footage in London. When production moved to Rome, entire sets had to be rebuilt from scratch. Taylor nearly died from pneumonia during filming, halting production for months and adding millions to the budget. The behind-the-scenes drama overshadowed the film itself. Taylor and co-star Richard Burton began a scandalous affair that made global headlines. The Vatican officially condemned their relationship as erotic vagrancy. The paparazzi frenzy was so intense that new techniques for celebrity photography were invented just to capture images of the couple. When the film finally premiered, critics were mixed. The New York Times called it a monumental mouse, while Time praised its panoramic splendor. At 4 hours and 8 minutes long, theaters could only show it once per evening, limiting potential revenue. Despite being the highest-grossing film of 1963 with $57 million, it still couldn't recoup its massive costs. 20th Century Fox lost so much money they had to sell off huge portions of their backlot just to survive. That land later became Century City in Los Angeles. The disaster changed how studios approached big-budget filmmaking, leading to stricter financial controls that remain in place today. The film's true legacy is its influence on celebrity culture. The Taylor Burton affair marked the beginning of modern celebrity obsession, setting the template for how media covers famous relationships. As film historian David Thompson noted, Cleopatra isn't just a movie. It's the moment Hollywood realized scandal could be more profitable than art. Number 2. Dr. Strangelove, 1964. This isn't just a comedy. It's Stanley Kubrick turning nuclear annihilation into the darkest farce imaginable. Peter Sellers plays 3 different roles in this tale of a rogue general who triggers a nuclear attack on the Soviet Union and the desperate attempts to stop it. The film was originally planned as a serious thriller based on the novel Red Alert. During script development, Kubrick kept finding the scenarios so absurd that he decided to transform it into a satire. The famous war room set was designed to be dramatically lit from a poker table, emphasizing the gambling with human lives. The Pentagon refused any cooperation, forcing Kubrick to rely entirely on photographs and imagination. Columbia Pictures executives were terrified. The film mocked military leaders, politicians, and nuclear strategy at the height of Cold War tensions. The release had to be delayed after President Kennedy's assassination because one line joked about presidential death. Even the title was controversial. The original was Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, which Columbia thought too provocative. Critics were divided along political lines. Conservative publications called it unpatriotic, while others hailed it as genius. The New York Times declared it the most shattering sick joke ever put on film. Despite the controversy, or perhaps because of it, the film was a commercial success, earning $9.4 million on a $1.8 million budget. Its cultural impact has been enormous. The film gave us phrases like doomsday machine and precious bodily fluids that entered everyday language. The American Film Institute ranked it as the 3rd greatest comedy ever made. Stanley Kubrick's willingness to find humor in humanity's darkest possibility, self-extinction, opened the door for generations of satirists to tackle previously untouchable subjects. As Roger Ebert observed, Dr. Strangelove remains the definitive political satire of the nuclear age. When the actual classified details of America's nuclear strategy were later revealed, many military officials admitted the real plans weren't far off from Kubrick's supposedly exaggerated fiction. Number 1. The Seventh Seal, 1957. This isn't just a foreign art film, it's Ingmar Bergman's medieval masterpiece that dared to ask the biggest questions about life, death, and the silence of God. Max von Sydow plays a knight returning from the Crusades who engages in a chess match with death personified while plague ravages the countryside. The iconic image of the knight playing chess with death has become one of cinema's most referenced and parodied scenes, appearing everywhere from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey to The Simpsons. What most don't know is that Bergman shot the film in just 35 days on a minuscule budget of approximately $150,000. Many scenes were filmed in early morning or late evening to create the distinctive, shadowy lighting that gives the film its haunting quality. Bergman wrote the script while hospitalized with serious stomach problems, convinced he might be dying. The film's existential questions reflected his own mortality crisis. The famous beach scene with death leading away the dancing figures, that was improvised on the final day of shooting when Bergman noticed a dramatic cloud formation and rushed his crew to capture it. Swedish critics initially dismissed it as pretentious. International audiences, however, embraced it immediately. It won the Special Jury Prize at Cannes and launched Bergman as a global cinematic force. Despite being a philosophical meditation on mortality with subtitles, it was surprisingly successful financially, earning multiples of its modest budget. Its cultural impact has been immeasurable. Woody Allen's entire career was influenced by Bergman's willingness to tackle philosophical questions in accessible ways. Francis Ford Coppola cited the film's visual style as a major influence on The Godfather's cinematography. Without the seventh seal, there would be no serious treatment of existential themes in mainstream cinema. Roger Ebert perhaps put it best: "The seventh seal is like no other film. It asks questions that are not asked in contemporary cinema, and certainly not in films that are so beautifully made. We all know we will die. What's worse is that we do not know what happens afterward." Hollywood keeps trying to make philosophical blockbusters today, but none have matched Bergman's ability to combine visual poetry, intellectual depth, and emotional resonance. In our CGI age, a black and white Swedish film about death remains more visually striking than most $200 million spectacles. Did your favorite classic make our list? Or are we completely wrong about what deserves the top spot? The gap between today's calculated franchise formulas and these boundary-pushing visions is stunning. Could any studio today greenlight a film where death plays chess, or where the main character dies 40 minutes in? The real question: have we actually gone backward in what cinema can dare to accomplish? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.